What is going on, everybody? This is Dan from DanMotoMusic, and today we're going to be ear training open chords versus closed position chords. So go ahead and grab your acoustic, your electric, and let's get started. All right, guys, the idea is we're going to be able to hear this easier because we're isolating the note on my guitar. But the idea is when you're listening to a track, when you're hearing this in a song, which you should, you got to get your ears used to hearing stuff in context with all these other instruments going on. That's when it's going to get kind of hard of what they're doing on a guitar if you're ear training to figure stuff out. So right here, the idea is just, once again, open position versus closed position for today. We'll do a bunch of ear training exercises if you guys want. So let's start with the four hardest ones to kind of get our head wrapped around. We got a C over here in open position and a C over here in closed position. We got a D open position and a D closed position. We got a G open and a G closed. And I'm forgetting one. Oh yeah, A major over here and A over here. And I'm going to stick to all the majors today, guys. This can happen and occur with minors, seventh chords and everything. But you can always practice by picking a song that you know has just major chords and maybe a couple minors, because not every song just has majors. I'm going to stick to majors today just to keep it simple. But the idea is there's a couple different things that happen where people start getting confused about what they're listening to or how to play in what position. A lot of it is context as far as what's comfortable for the player, what feels natural to them, and what sounds good. And it's also what's needed in the song. So the idea here is learning timbre and unisons. So a timbre is a tone color of the same note. If I have an A note, it's not going to be a octave higher or lower. It's going to be the same A, but it's on a different string. Let me give you an example. If you know how to tune your guitar, you come across this just like that, where you're using two A's, two E's, or whatever to always tune with. But this A on the sixth string, fret 5, let me use my first finger, and the open A are unison. And unison means that they're the exact same note, same frequency, same everything. But the timbre comes into play because of the tone color of the different string. And that is because the sixth string right here is thicker than the fifth string. Another reason, guys, is because the sixth string is also being played closed, and the fifth string is being played open. That alone, guys, if you can wrap your ear around that over time, it's not going to happen easy, but if you can start to hear differences, these little differences, that's huge. That can open many doors for you to get things right when you're trying to ear train and find things on your own. Of course, you want to use covers, you want to use tabs, and check your work. Keep in mind, they may be playing it a little different, but the idea is maybe if you find enough tabs or enough versions of covers and both, and get the idea of the way you think it is, or maybe find a live version of the person you're trying to copy or learn the song from, that can give you a little hint. If you just see their arm jump over here real quick or over there, and then the camera cuts to them, that's still huge, because that could tell you, oh, they're not playing this A, they're playing this A. Things like that. You got to use a lot of context clues when you're starting to learn how to ear train. So let's go through this A. I said earlier the hardest ones are G, D, C, and A. Well, let's just break it down with A for today, and you'll be able to apply this with the others. If I were to take this A major over here in open position and this closed position A over here on sixth string, fret 5, really the only differences, guys, is going to be the first string over here with this A over here. That's the only note that's not involved with both A's. Let's break this down. So I got open A over here, then I got an E, then I got an A, then I got a C sharp, and then an E. Now, over here, I got an A, E, A, C sharp again, E, and then an octave A. That A, once again, is the only difference, but it might be the only difference you need. If you hear him doing something like this, you'll be starting to hear that A a lot, and that, boom, you already know where they're at. Now, if you don't hear it and it's more like this, well, how can you tell the difference? Maybe on this one they don't play that E, that A open, or the A on the first string anyway. Well, the way you could tell is, once again, tone color, but also sustain. What happens to sustain? Remember earlier when you do this open A to closed A tuning, they have a different way of carrying themselves in context. So when I'm playing an open A over here, notice how much sustain and wobble, and they have more of a freer spirit of how they have a natural decay of how they decline when you play, compared to this one over here. This one has a thinner sound and the sustain dies quicker. Now, in context of song, that's kind of hard to hear because maybe the guitar is not in front. Maybe the guitar is kind of buried in the track, or maybe the drummer is louder than what you can hear. But it's all context. So sometimes you got to look at the other chords around it. So if I were to play this in context of, let's just put this order: G major to D major to A major to C major. Let me play that a couple times for you. Now that has a bassier sound compared to, let's say, this open position. Same chords, G, D, A, E, C. That alone, I can hear on this open position. You have a lot of brighter sound on any of those chords compared to over here. That's one clue. That can tell you, oh, they're more in the open position because it has a tinnier sound, a brighter sound, and maybe not so bassy. You know, that's a good context clue. Now, let's say if they're doing something and they're moving up the fretboard, but they're using similar ideas of sound, kind of like this. Well, there's two ways to think about it. You could think about the melody line. If they were doing like this, you can hear there's two notes always moving. Or you could think of it by hearing, well, I hear, first of all, I always hear this high E with any of those chords right here. Listen to this. Now that we're zoning in on it, you might be able to hear it easier. See, do you hear it? It's just ringing about. I also hear this G, and I also hear this A. So by listening and thinking in context is what the melody line is doing or what the harmony is doing, in this case it's going to be three strings ringing open the whole time, I can kind of wrap my ear on, okay, they have something moving melody wise, but there is a chord or certain notes that are not. So they may be in an open position tuning where that works better. In this case, that A7 idea works great on its own because it's movable. So just naturally through the standard E shape or the standard E tuning of this guitar. So it's a movable shape already. But those are the kind of context clues you're going to want to pick up on. Notice that it's the same notes that were staying the same. In other words, I still hear the A, G, and E no matter what. Well, that tells me they're doing something in open. And I also hear that melody line. So that's a good context clue that they're going to be moving about somewhere. But all of it, guys, all of it is context. And of course, this is something you may just wrap your head around while bite-sizing it. You don't have to take a whole song. You might just take one chord. Take one chord and then see if you can find just the bass note of it. Maybe it's just the A. Or if I was playing the context of this over here, this G to D to A to C, maybe you're just concentrating on the bass note though. Now that may be hard at first. So what you can do also is get a bass line from a song and focus on the bass line, because bass lines usually focus on one note. So I'll make another video on that down the road. But these are context clues, guys, that you have to pick up on as you go and learn. And the more you wrap your head around this idea about unisons and octaves and playing position, the better you're going to get. Remember, it depends on context of where they're out on the fretboard, what feels comfortable, and what's needed with the song. Sustain and timbre. Timbre is going to be where it has a different tone color, but it's the same note. The sustain is going to be the natural decaying of an open note versus a closed note, and things like that. So if you have any trouble with this, you can always email me. I'll leave that in the description box below. I'm a guitar teacher, a piano teacher. I teach music theory. I teach composition, anything you need like that. I hope this video helps you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.